There once was a ship put to the skies. The name of the ship was the Enterprise. Her nacelles lit, her phasers armed, oh blow, you red shirts blow. Soon may the flagship come, bring us Earl Grey tea and Orion rum. One day when the scanning is done, engage and boldly go. Been not 2 weeks from Sector 1 when we were sacked by Romulans. Red alert was called, and Captain said torpedoes make it so. Soon may the flagship come, bring us Earl Grey tea and Orion rum. One day when the scanning is done, engage and boldly go. Before our foe had reached the hull, the shields were raised and power at full. Screen went dark, the Romulans gone when they engaged their cloak. Soon may the flagship come, bring us Earl Grey tea and Orion rum. One day when the scanning is done, engage and boldly go.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Star Trek Wars Council Roundtable, and this time we're talking about I was going to say controversial, but I guess we'll find out whether it's controversial or not. Certainly the first next-gen film, arguably the last original series film, kind of. Anyway, it's Star Trek Generations. I'm Senior Council Member James King. Joining me is Lainey.
Howdy.
And Joe.
Hello.
And making his first appearance on the roundtables, Tony.
Hello. Some people might also know me as the Grib Schnobbler, which is my music and my podcast hosting name. But I also host a podcast called the Gribcast, though I've been really slack about it lately. I actually have 6 full episodes recorded that I need to actually sit down and edit and release, but I haven't.
Oh gosh, I know that feeling.
So Star Trek Generations, we usually start off then talking about where we first came across this one, and this one's an interesting one for me, because this was the first one I saw at the cinema, and it was the first one that, when I first saw it, I was sort of a full-on Trekkie, so this was a really big one for me. I was so excited for it, and Next Gen had just finished, and it finished on a high, and I was a big fan of the original and Next Gen, and DS9 was doing really good at the time, and it was so exciting. And we'll talk about whether it lived up to it or not, but it was a weird one because it came out at a time. It wasn't too long after my parents split up and got divorced, so they were kind of sort of one-upping each other a little bit. So I'd booked to go down. So my dad was living in London at the time. So I was booked to go down on the Saturday to see my dad in London. He was like, I'll get us tickets, we'll go see it in the Leicester Square Odeon, and way. But then my mum realised that it came out on the Friday, so she was like, oh, I'll take you to see it in Leeds, so you can see it with me first. So I went to see it on the Friday night with my mum, and then I had to pretend I'd not seen it on the Saturday with my dad, so that my dad thought that he was getting to take me to see it.
I think my cat's making noise on tapping his tail on my computer.
Oh, he's okay.
Stop your pussy being in the camera, please.
So I ended up seeing this film twice in 2 days. And I think I actually saw it another couple of times at the cinema, because I think, a friend of mine wanted to see it, so I went to see it with him. And then another time I was just bored, and I thought I'll go see Star Trek Generations again, which, not usually a cure for boredom. But so I pretty much ended up seeing it a lot at the cinema, and then we won it in a competition on VHS. So I had the VHS edition, which was, I don't know if this was true in the States as well, and this is completely pointless random trivia, but VHS tapes, when you got them from a video shop like Blockbuster, the box was bigger than on the home retail version, so I had a bigger version of Generations. And
sometimes in the US it was like that.
Yeah, mind US. You guys, I remember you just sold videotapes in cardboard slipcases, didn't you, a lot? Whereas ours were mostly in plastic boxes. This is so dull. I promise I will cut this.
In the U.S., it was mostly Disney and other family films that were released in the plastic clamshell cases.
There you go. Yeah, we see everything we got was the plastic cases, but
I got a few in the other room if I need to get those out. I got a lot of old stuff.
Yeah, my brother's still got loads of VHS. I think he's one of the only people who's got still a VHS player. And there used to be, and this is totally boring trivia now, but did anyone hear this rumour that if you bought an ex-rental tape, it was actually better quality because they used stronger tape because they anticipated it being watched more times, whereas one that you bought at home wasn't as good because they didn't anticipate it being watched as many times.
I've not heard this before.
Was it true? I've not heard this before either, and I actually worked at Blockbuster for 6 years, and I started when we still had VHS tapes available. Yeah, they were already going out of style.
Yeah.
But they weren't completely phased out of the store yet. It was interesting going through the transition from VHS to DVD, then to Blu-ray and HDVD, and then streaming, of course. Blu-ray never got a chance to be the one on top because of streaming.
Yeah, and the redundancy of the Blockbuster.
Yeah.
I do love the irony, isn't it? That everyone was all like, oh yeah, the big format war between HD DVD and Blu-ray, and then Blu-ray won, but it was a bit of a Pyrrhic victory in the end because of streaming.
Yeah, I still prefer physical media, though. I still like to have everything on Blu-ray where I can. And in answer to the question, no, I don't think it was true about the tapes being more durable, but we bought it at the time. And, I've
Literally.
Well, no, because I won it.
I watched VHS plenty of times too, but I don't think I owned that one in particular.
Not a great loss.
I've got the 2-disc special edition DVD, although I didn't actually watch it for last night was when I rewatched it with my girlfriend and her dad and stepmom are visiting, and they're big Star Trek fans too. So they didn't mind rewatching it, but we ended up still watching it on Paramount Plus because it's in high definition and my DVDs are not. So
easier.
Yeah.
But I do have all those sweet extra features, which I'm still a sucker for.
Well, tell us when you first came across this one then, Tony, what's your generation's origin story?
Well, I was about 12 when it came out, and I also saw it in the theater. It was not quite my first Star Trek movie in the theater. I did get to see Star Trek 6 in the theater when it came out with my best childhood friend David Bird, who hey, if you ever hear this, David, please get in touch with me. I miss you. Yeah, I haven't been able. Once AOL Instant Messenger went down, I forgot to get like an email address or a phone number or something from him before it went down, and that was the only way I was in touch with him. And now I'm like, I don't know what happened to him. Hopefully he's okay. But we loved Star Trek. We watched Star Trek all the time. We got to watch Star Trek 2 on an official beta tape, like the actual release. His family had beta tapes. It's going even farther back. But we went to see Star Trek 6 together, and I thought we'd gone to see Generations together, but probably not, because by that, depending on what time of the year it came out, I might have been in the U.S. at that point. But I did get to see it in the theater, and I loved it at the time. I mean, when I was a kid, Star Trek could do no wrong, I mean, I even took Star Trek 5 completely seriously when I was a kid. What does God need with a starship, huh? Good point, Kirk. Anyway, I loved it when I was a kid. I loved the idea of Kirk and Picard meeting. I loved the idea of Data dealing with his emotion chip. And I even got, it's funny because like all of Data's attempts at humor and all that, all the jokes about Data and his emotion chip, I just thought was absolutely hilarious when I was a kid. And it's funny because now I watch it as an adult, and I think it's just as funny, but now because it's also kind of cringy.
Yeah.
Sure, it's definitely cringe
but it
there.
still makes me laugh even for the cringe factor.
And this isn't the first time that happened, because there was that episode where Data tried to learn humor, and then they had to bring in what random Joe Piscopo.
And that's another classic.
That might have been on the I think that episode was the Outrageous O'Connor.
It was,
which was outrageously miserable and awful in its own right. So Yeah, I don't know what it is about Data and not being funny. Except when he's not trying to be, then he's really funny.
I've just realised I missed out the most important element of my first cinema visit to see this, which was it was sort of my first experience of hardcore Trekkies. And so it's opening night, it's the first showing, and when they first come across the Nexus in the Enterprise B, a guy in the cinema stood up and went, "On screen!" And everyone's kind of looked at him.
Oh dear, the Trekkies of Leeds.
I'm trying to keep my cat off my laptop. Coleman. There you go. Walk past it.
Lainey, when did you first come across Generations?
I've been racking my brain all day and I have absolutely no idea.
It
always made that much of an impression on me.
Okay.
I don't know whether I caught it on TV. Like it's only the Undiscovered Country that I saw in the cinema, so it definitely wasn't the cinema. Whether it was when I actually got all the DVDs of the movies, I don't think so. I think I probably just caught it on TV because I would have kept an eye out for things like that. But I do not remember watching it before the DVD I still owned.
When did it actually come out?
94, wasn't it?
Yeah,
they filmed it straight
94.
after the end of season 7.
94. Okay, so I would have been 4 at the time.
Oh, shut up, Joe.
Joe, what about you?
I guess
you and your youth.
Am I the oldest person here? I was 12 at the time. I was born in 82.
I was born 81, so no, there you go.
83, 81, 82, 83, and then 1990.
You oldies. To be fair, like if we had Alexandra here, she'd make us all feel ridiculously old.
Yeah.
She would indeed, yeah. When we did the Independence Day podcast with her, and she was like, "I wasn't born when it came out." That was, yeah. Anywho, Joe.
Hello.
Did 3-year-old Joe go to the cinema to see Generations?
Okay. Well, obviously it came out when I was 4, so there's no chance I saw it then. They say that Sky Television is the fire in which we burn. If you had Sky Television, I don't know if it was Sky or Virgin because we had Virgin first and then Sky. But regardless of what it was, no, it was NTL before Virgin. The point was we had cable and then we had satellite, and it's almost certain that I must have watched it with that because that's all I can remember. The thing is, I've seen this film so many blooming times because Sky just. When you got a Sky Movies channel, they'll just stop what they've got, and so you can get random things at random times, and they like showing Generations for some reason. So that's where I saw it.
Do you remember when Sky used to do, and this is true, they used to do this thing where they'd put in the TV guide, and it'd go 8 o'clock on Wednesday. It's either going to be Highlander or Teen Wolf. And you'd have to phone to vote on which one you wanted to see. And
not have Sky as a child. I don't remember.
It was crazy because at the time I was like, I really want to see Highlander. I really want to see Highlander. And my dad were like, well, you're going to have to wait and see what the outcome of the phone-in vote is, whether you get to see Highlander or Teen Wolf. I'm like, I've seen Teen Wolf. I want to see Highlander.
Was it Teen Wolf?
What?
Was it Teen Wolf?
No, Highlander won. So I got to see Highlander. Can you imagine how different my life might have been if Teen Wolf had have won that?
My God, total butterfly effect.
I know, instead of having a katana hung up in my geek room, I might have like a wolf pelt or something, or a basketball. Yeah. You never know.
Imagine if they decided to make you watch Highlander 2, though.
I've seen Highlander 2 many, many times.
Why?
Because...
I think
And I don't have an answer. There was no end to that sentence. It was just because ...
I was worried I was interrupting you. Actually, believe it or not, I saw Highlander 3 in the theater when it came out.
So did I, yeah.
Don't remember too much of it, and I hadn't seen any of the other Highlander movies, but I just randomly went to see it. See, when I was a kid, we lived on Rhein-Main Air Force Base in Germany. It's not there, but it's like living in this like weird little... It's like almost like living in an American town, but if you left town, it's Germany. Mm-hmm. So we only had one little movie theater there, so I would see most of what played there. If it was PG-13 or less, they would.
But you were like,
I wasn't 13
you're honorary
yet,
European then, Tony. We're going to take you into our
Well, we can't anymore, then.
I don't think we have space.
Well, the reason I brought it up is because I actually get used to watch Sky One all the time. Now, for a good chunk of my time there, because I was actually there from when I was like 1 year old all the way till almost 12. I was like turned 12 shortly after we moved back to the U.S. And for about half the time, we only had AFN, Armed Forces Network. But then later we got some sort of cable type package, which gave us like 10 channels, and it was like 5 German channels, and which I would watch only I would watch the weird game shows, but I didn't understand what they were saying. And then we had like 5 British channels, and at least one of them was Sky One, and I used to watch that all the time. There was this like Cat Muppet that would introduce all these different cartoons.
DJ Cat.
Was it?
Yeah. This is the DJ Cat Show, and I am DJ Cat. You better listen up. So I'm a cat with a K, O-K, K, 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 O-K.
And I was amused because we had access to some, American tapes, and my grandparents would send us Saturday morning cartoon tapes. I was familiar with both Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And I got to see a lot of my Star Trek.
Apparently.
Yeah. And I got to see a lot of my Star Trek reruns.
Yeah, 5 o'clock every day, Sky One. Yeah, the British Board of Film Classification had a real thing with turtles. They were like, you can't call them Ninja Turtles, and you can't ever show Michelangelo using the nunchucks. So
deadly weapon.
And swords and like
I know, that's the really stupid thing. I don't know why.
If you ever saw the British version of the first Ninja Turtles movie, it was just hacked to pieces because they couldn't show Michelangelo, so it made it look like Shredder just fell off the roof at the end, because actually Splinter uses Michelangelo's nunchuck to flip him off the roof, but it just made it look like he fell off, and I always thought that's somewhat disappointing. And then I got it on uncut DVD finally, and I was like, whoa! Anyway.
I mean, it was still kind of disappointing in the first place anyway. It's not the best way for a villain to go.
Oh, no. And he falls in the garbage truck, and like Casey Jones is like, oh, whoops. And you're like, oh, okay. Go do some more Atomego Yan films.
Just like this was not the best way for Kirk to go.
There we go. Bringing us back to Generations.
I brought it back.
So shall we do pros then? Who wants to go first with pros?
I have 10.
Oh, 10 pros.
Okay. I was going to say, maybe, I wasn't sure if I was the only one who liked the movie or not.
Go on, Lainey.
Well, I have 10 pros, but I have 13 observations and 17
I didn't take proper notes. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, well, I don't, but I actually had some time. Okay, so I'm just going to go through my list. I don't really have a top 3.
Go for it.
So my top 3 on my list are the press on the Enterprise B. I enjoy them. I think they're amusing. Like just waiting in awe for anything Captain Kirk's going to say, and they're right in his face. I like that. I thought throughout the film there's a really interesting use of light. Obviously the D is lit completely differently. But also when the first sun blows up and Picard is talking with Troy, and it just completely changes how his quarters are illuminated. And there's just several times there's interesting changes in light. And let's go with the Data humour. I thought I hated more of that than I actually did when I watched it this time around, because I was making a note of which parts I enjoy and which parts I don't. Because one of my observations on neutral zones is the Data and his emotions and that humour in quotes, because it does make you feel uncomfortable and awkward, and it's like, is that good acting? Like, am I awkward because this is bad acting, or am I awkward because it's good acting and it's supposed to be making me feel awkward? I'm not sure, but I like that he hates the drink, and he likes that he hates the drink. I like his Picard imitation. I like life forms. I like oh shit, and I like the crying with Spot at the end. So that was a package of one pro.
The spot scene makes me cry sometimes.
Yeah, well, you're a cat man.
I am, and one time I watched this movie like only about 2 or 3 months after our family cat had passed away, and so we got to that scene, and I'd forgotten about it, and it got to me unexpectedly. So I still think it's real sweet.
Eyes? What is he crying? Is he crying oil, or is that just the makeup that's like?
I noticed it looked kind of yellow.
It's yellowy, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's because it's running down his makeup rather than necessarily intended to be yellow, but...
that's something I never noticed until watching it in HD recently.
Yeah, there you go.
Unless I noticed it back in the theater, when I saw it in the theater and forgot about it, because that was a while ago.
Yeah, there's a lot of special effects that don't stand up to HD. Like, you can't get away with quite as much, but...
I thought the special effects in this one held up fairly well, though. Oh, I'm sorry, Ellen. Did you finish your pros?
Yes, I have done 3.
I thought you had 17.
No, I have 10 pros, and I've done 3, and I shall allow others, and I shall fill in any gaps in a minute.
Okay, Tony, what have you got?
Well, obviously, I agree on some of her points. I didn't write any notes down, so hopefully I could think of some. But I do love. I will say I find some of the stuff with Data and his emotion chip weirdly relatable now that I'm older, especially as someone who was not very good at social interaction and handling his emotions when I was younger. Like I had to make a concerted effort over the years of my life to get better.
That's one of the reasons I find it uncomfortable. It's sort of like, oh my God, I've done something like this. Kind of.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I've noticed in recent years, at my age now, I've noticed that there's a lot of things that used to really make me uncomfortable and bother me when I was younger that now I just think are kind of funny. So I love the score to Star Trek Generations, and I even pulled out my compact disc copy. I'm going to make some noises with the jewel case just because podcasts are audio format. And I won't talk too much about the soundtrack, though, because Jeremy kind of touched on all the points I would have made. Nexus Christmas Hug is beautiful. But I think it might be on the digital version, too, but I do want to point out that there's about 15 or more tracks that are on here that are after the score that are just sound effects from the movie. And it's also really entertaining. They even have like a whole 3-minute long track that's just the Enterprise crashing sounds.
Excellent.
Wow.
Yeah. And I like the emotional elements of this movie, particularly with Picard. I maybe that's the nostalgia talking in my case. I'm not going to pretend that nostalgia is not a big factor with how much I like this movie because it's got a lot of flaws. But I do still find a lot of the scenes with Picard and working out his emotions to be very touching. And I do still really like seeing Picard and Kirk interact with each other. I kind of wish they'd had more of that. I feel like they should have pushed that a little more in the movie. But now I guess that's going outside of prose a little bit.
Joe, what have you got?
Okay, so I'm going to say this. I have a lot of issues with the execution of certain elements, but I will say from the start that I think, given what he had to deal with, Malcolm McDowell did a darn good job being Soren.
Yeah.
Like, he's a very good actor, and you can tell. You can tell that he was given what he was given, which is spotty at best, but he was able to put it into something that is memorable. You know, there isn't any other Trek villain like him, even if he's just a Guinan, like, member of Guinan's race who happens to be really kind of psycho. You know, at least you've got some of that. You know, he's memorable, and that's something. I think I like the... What else do I like? I like the callbacks. You know, again, I don't like how they were used, but I thought having the Dura sisters back was good. I liked... there are just lots of different callbacks throughout all the different, you know, small things. But it's good to show that they were at least making an effort to try and have that sort of those elements there. I guess because, again, given what they're going to do to the ship later, I think that was kind of the point. It's just sort of that, if this is going to be the last voyage of the Enterprise D, you got to have some callbacks. And I think that's I think cast-wise, everyone brought their effort in. I don't think anyone half-assed it from anyone, including Kirk, because, me and Kirk, we have a bit of a weird, certainly at least movie Kirk, I'm not always the most complimentary towards old Shatner for multiple reasons. But no, he's clearly trying. He's putting as much effort in this as he did when he was doing all the other stuff when he was the captain. And I think that's nice. It shows that, even though he's not the main guy anymore, he's at least got enough goodwill in him to pass it on to, Picard, however botched it ended up being. So yeah, I suppose in all, for me, cast and callbacks are the things that I remember most about this film.
Yeah, just on what you said about Malcolm McDowell being good, I've just remembered I really like his little weird gun that he's got. That it's got the bit on top that sort of goes zzz and changes for no reason. But
the gun thing,
an unnecessarily cool prop. You didn't have to do that, but it's cool. I've got a few. I really like the opening shot of the bottle, the bottle drifting through space, and I think that's really nice. I like that we finally get the Enterprise B, because I remember this being a big thing, that Picard had his gold ships on display, and everyone would look at it and be like, well, it looks like it's an Excelsior, and it fits in with the timeline that it would be an Excelsior, but there was so much fan speculation of, so what was the Enterprise B? And then them to finally go, yep, it is an Excelsior. There you go. There it is. Even though it's a different looking Excelsior, so it doesn't fit in with the model that he had. But a little bit of trivia. The reason it's got the big bit that juts out is because they didn't want to ruin the normal model of the Excelsior by putting a big hole in it. So they built an extra bit that they could then put a hole in and then take off so that they could use the Excelsior model again in DS9, Voyager, etc. Oh, that's what I've heard.
Something was coming on Tuesday?
No. Yeah, it's coming on Tuesday. We're going to take off this big unnecessary bit on Tuesday. I like Demora Sulu because Peter David wrote a novel called The Captain's Daughter that's all about Sulu and Demora, and it's really good. So the fact that they introduce a character here that went on to do good in a spin-off bit of fiction. Look, I'm really struggling here. I'm clutching at straws. But no, it is cool because Sulu, and I think this is largely because George Takei pushed for it a lot, but Sulu gets a lot of sort of after-the-fact development. Obviously he didn't get very much in the original series, but then he actually gets to become a captain. And we find out in this that he's actually had a family. So it fleshes out that character in a way that, say, Chekhov, for example, never is. I think Kirk's first death is really well done, really heroic. He saves the day. And I know Lainey wants to touch on this, but he actually dies alone in that bit. So that ties into Star Trek V.
But does he die?
Well, does he? And I think it's really well done, and the gravitas of the situation is nicely touched on. You get that lovely bit where Chekhov says, "My God, was anybody in here?" And Scotty just says, "Aye." And it's just wonderful. It's so well done. They mention the Breen very briefly, just because, again, I was in my mega, not that, I've not entirely come out of my mega nerdy Star Trek phase, arguably still in it. But when I was a young lad, I was even more so. And so you'd pick up on anything that's mentioned. And the Breen have been mentioned one or two times. And this is before we actually see them in DS9. So I was like, oh, the Breen again. I agree, Malcolm McDowell's excellent. The stellar cartography set and the effects there looks great. I always wonder, because in season 6, Picard had that thing with Neil Adaran, didn't he, who was the stellar cartographer? And I wonder if he's like, oh, I'm going to get you a nice new stellar cartography. And then she leaves anyway, and he's like, oh, yeah, I built this bloody stellar cartography and gone.
Yeah, because in that episode, they're just sort of standing around a light.
Yeah, exactly. And I reckon.
It in and then she buggered off.
Yep, yeah, exactly. So,
you won't leave me, will you, Data? No, sir.
Exactly.
I'll look after this stellar cartography for you.
Yeah, who's in charge of stellar cartography? Why is Data doing it? The crash scene is really cool. It's using a physical model. It's, just stuff like that just still looks great. It maybe goes on a little bit too long, but...
I was going to say, I thought the special effects in that scene held up pretty well.
Yeah. Because I remember... this is another British thing, but the Sun newspaper, which other newspapers are available, and
definitely
much better.
You should not buy the Sun at all, though the crossword's not bad. Surprisingly, given the age range that the Sun is aimed at, the cryptic crossword is actually rather difficult. So you had to buy the Sun newspaper for 2 weeks and save up tokens and send it off to get a making of Generations tape. Oh, no. And they sent it through to you, and it had a big bit on how they did the saucer crash and everything like that, and it's all physical models, great stuff.
I think that might be included on the special edition DVD.
It probably is now, yeah. But back in the day, we had to buy a terrible right-wing newspaper for 6 weeks to get enough tokens to get it.
Isn't it? Does it also have the reputation for being really gossipy?
Oh, yeah, it's not a newspaper.
God, yeah, it's trash.
It's absolute rubbish, is the
I was
Sun.
just checking because, I did get to visit London for 2 weeks, but otherwise, most of my experience of England is just British TV. But I do watch a good bit of that.
Yeah, we're not like that either. Really. Well, depends which show.
Yeah, you can't really say you can't watch. I mean, it makes sense. You can't watch something like Friends and assume that everyone in America is like that.
What? You're not?
Maybe you're not.
I'm gonna say everyone's got
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, probably.
Yeah,
I think that's probably more accurate.
Everyone's got a penthouse apartment in New York that doesn't cost them anything, and it's great. So the moral of the story is I should have waited for the DVD release so I didn't have to buy the Sun. Also, I really like the horseback scene with the two captains. And going back to the score, I think the score for that scene is brilliant. But that's one of two big scenes with the captains, the other of which will appear in my cons. But, so anyone else got any more to add?
Lisa. Okay, I'll go through the rest of my list. So Robert and Renee, they die in a fire. Rest in peace. I like that this happened, but I don't like... No, hang on. Start that again.
What did Robert and Renee do to you?
It is a touching moment, I know. And actually, the gravity of that scene hit me a lot more now than it did when I was younger. Because now I watch and it really hit me a lot harder. Am I right that he was saying that he's basically the last surviving member of his family?
Yeah, it's really harsh.
Yeah, that's bad. That's really terrible. It never hit me how terrible that really is until I guess now that I'm older and I appreciate my family more.
I thought it was a kind of nod to Robert's resistance to technology and development and evolution, and the fact, surely, whenever I've watched this before, surely they would have some kind of technology that would just kill the fire.
Like a fire alarm would have been helpful.
Yeah, a fire alarm.
But Robert's I don't want this silly technology, Jean-Luc.
I mean, that chateau isn't small. It's a chateau. It, you can run out from a fire if you're alerted to it. That's some drastic, bad situation where they've both got burned to death in this fire.
Of course, there's some irony to the fact that, Picard ends up owning that bloody chateau. Yeah. I think it's the same one. So he's basically decided to go and live where his relatives died.
Well,
That's a bit of a weird.
I
He
mean,
is in kind of a sad place in Picard, so I guess that would actually kind of make sense in a way.
and someone's died everywhere. You know, if you were not going to live anywhere where someone had died, I bet someone's died right here. Actually, I died over there, so you know.
Okay, but at least it wasn't burnt. You'd have to spend all that money to repair it and all that.
Well, there's no money, is there? In the 24th century, someone just comes and repairs it.
But apparently they buy and sell houses. More on that later. Worf has a chair. Did anyone else spot Worf having? He sat down. I think maybe it was something to do with how it was shot. Because if Michael Dorn had been standing up, he wouldn't have been in the frame.
They'd have had to do with Zack Snyder and film it horizontally. So
I think that it was more of a production thing than a let's give this man a seat thing. But I liked it. I hope for your sake you're initiating a mating ritual. Excellent line. In fact, all of the Duras. I've got Stella Tarkov. Geordie's stunt role as they're shutting off engineering underneath the door.
Oh, people love that role. It's not the first time he's done it either.
No, it's not.
I was racking my brains for the other time he's done it. He's done it. Maybe it was Best of Both Worlds or something like that. Like another situation where he's had to do it. Love the role. I like that there's a source of separation. That kind of feels nice and circular. Like they did that in Encounter at oh my god, can't talk. Encounter at Farpoint. And actually, they had the budget to do it again, didn't they? So crack on.
And at least one thing we can say: this is definitely better than Encounter at Farpoint.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah,
maybe not the biggest hurdle to jump over, but hey.
No.
I feel like Encounter at Farpoint is a decent start for what they were initially trying to do with the Next Generation, but just because it kind of introduced what their ideas behind the show pretty well, but it's just obviously they were not at the top of their game yet.
No, like I say, I'm just not part of the Groppler Zorn fan club. I'm sorry.
I liked Groppler Zorn.
Last time I watched it was when I finally did like a full from first episode to last episode watch of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh no!
It
means you would have had to have watched Code of Honor.
I did watch Code of Honor.
Oh no! How did you survive?
I guess I did. I don't remember. Maybe
you got it out of the way pretty quickly.
Maybe that's how I survived.
It's like episode 3, isn't it? So at least it's out of the way pretty soon.
I think. I don't know. I mean, even bad Star Trek can be kind of entertaining. I think when I finally got back to that one, I didn't really know about its reputation, so I just watched it and was like, well, that's. Now I'm actually watching everything. That's not really all that interesting to see.
Yeah, Encounter at Farpoint's one of those where it was fine at the time, but if you tried to launch a show with that episode now, it would get cancelled.
This is all
that
like
would
when
be
when the people are bitching about Picard and Discovery. It's like, have you watched Encounter at Farpoint? Like,
have you watched Broken Bow?
Yeah.
I mean, have you watched, even though I'm going to go to bat for the first season of Deep Space Nine, it's shakier than you'd want from a first season of any of,
To be honest, I mean, I feel like not counting any of the new Star Trek, I would say that Deep Space Nine has the best first season. I thought the first season of Discovery was good, but I actually think every subsequent season's been better.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Alan Moraine.
And as far as Picard goes, I really liked the second half of the season. The first half, a little slow.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we were going a bit off topic again.
Yeah, see, this is the Generations effect. We keep finding other things.
It's not the tangentist of tangents.
No, we're still talking about
Star Trek. Yeah, I know. We haven't even mentioned poultry. My last pro is going back to what you're saying, Jim, about the horse riding scene and the line, "I take it the odds are against us and the situation grim." I think it just sort of sums up the spirit of the Star Trek.
You know what? That's good enough to put in the trailer, is that line. Like, get that in the trailer. Right. I remember that.
I wasn't, I haven't watched the trailer in a while.
Oh, the trailer was great.
When it came out.
It's like they had that line, and they had a bit that I don't think is actually in the film where Kirk says, "Let's cheat death together," and it's, I think it's from the Enterprise B bit because he's wearing his classic uniform. But yeah, I think they must have cut that. Is that all the pros then?
I just want to say that I do like that whole scene, and like the whole thing of him realizing that the Nexus is just pointless because he's not feeling any of it. You know, I thought that was quite clever, especially for a guy like Kirk. And I do like what he says to Picard. You know, like he tells about stay captain. Don't.
Yeah.
Because that's very, very much a Kirk thing.
And Picard doesn't listen to him. He gets promoted to Admiral and he's not happy. So Kirk was right.
Maybe I guess you're right.
Yeah.
I do have a couple little pros. Not much else. Just a couple specific moments with Captain Kirk that I really liked. I love how he waits so politely for the new Enterprise captain to ask him for help. Like I was watching him very closely. Like he kind of walks over closer to him, but he's like pretending to look at the displays, and he's very quietly waiting, hand behind his back, not saying anything. And I was like, oh, okay, Kirk knows what he's doing here. He does not want to undermine this guy's authority.
Yeah, he's learned from the first. First film after what he did to Commodore Pedo.
Yeah, but he also knows that this guy's going to ask for his help any second.
Sorry, I'm getting confused. So he's Captain Pedo, not
it was. Commodore was his dad, and presumably wasn't. And also, similar to that, Tony, he does have the bit where he nearly sits in the seat because Harriman's going to go down and defuse the thing or whatever it is. And Kirk nearly takes a seat in the captain's chair, and he realizes, no, this is his bridge. He should stay. I should do that.
Right. That's a nice touch, too. And my other moment, as silly as it is, I love the part in the seemingly infamous egg cooking scene where he's like, there's something missing. And then the toast pops up and he just has that weird little finger move and where he points at it and he just goes,
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I do stuff like that when I'm by myself. Oh gosh.
Yeah, if only Shatner would have done that when he was by himself, we wouldn't have had to watch it, but there we go.
No. Oh, and technically not a movie pro, but I just discovered that my CD actually, it wasn't the actual booklet that was showing as the cover. It was a very, very shiny sticker.
Ooh.
So I don't know if this is probably missing when most people find a used CD. So
yeah.
I'll probably keep it in there for now, but I just thought that was...
And that brings up a good point, because obviously the front of your CD cover there is the movie poster, and that is an awesome poster.
That is a very good poster.
Yeah, there's no question of that. Any other pros?
It even has a lens flare before Abrams.
That's it. He saw that poster. He was like, They did the Kirk thing. Something's missing.
Something's missing from my new Star Trek.
Yeah, I was going to say, he does the point. Yeah, he does the point.
It's funny. How many of the Star Trek movies has everyone seen in the theater?
I have seen the Abrams ones.
Yeah, I've seen from Generations onwards.
I don't think I've seen any Star Trek film in the cinema. I've seen them, the films, but not the... Oh, no, actually, no, I did see Into Darkness, unfortunately, in Star Trek 2009. I saw those two. But, you know.
I did get to see 6 Generations in First Contact, as well as all the Abrams films as they came out. I did get to go to one of the flashback cinema
Yeah.
screenings of Star Trek 2, which was a lot of fun. I was hoping to go see Star Trek 4 recently, but I didn't have the time to go.
Yeah, Shatner does a lot of tours, doesn't he, where he does Star Trek 2 and he does like a Q&A afterwards, and yeah, I'd quite like to go see one of them if he starts doing them again.
Oh, that would be cool.
I don't know. I don't know how much old Shatner I could deal with.
He'd be fine. So, yeah, neutral zones.
So I'm going to now pitch my feelings on the film as a whole. And I've had this in my head for ages, and people have looked at me weird for the comparison, but it will make sense when I say it. When we look at the way that this whole film is based, it's very much based around the feels, especially in regards, poor Picard, his family dies, and then he gets faced with a life that he's never had, with the kids and stuff. And, for me, that works. And I think the problem with the film is that I think it's banking on it. I think that it's realized that the way that it's probably going to succeed with certain people is to sort of put all of its weight into the emotional punches. And the sad thing for them was, I think, especially when you look at a lot of the reviews, I don't think it necessarily worked for a lot of people. It did for me, but I'm a sappy bugger, and I care about Picard, as a character. But I'm certain that I can see other people that like Picard as a character, and they say it just didn't work for me. People like Chuck from SS Debris and all that stuff. They're saying that it just didn't connect for them. And it made me think of another film where it does work. And this is the bit that everyone thinks I'm weird for mentioning. But again, much better film. But Lion King, right? Lion King, when it was being made, it was being made at the same time as Pocahontas. And so they kept having animators being taken away and running at lower budget and so on. And they realized, okay, well, how are we going to make this work? Let's put all of our effort into making those emotional moments count. So they really went all in on the Mufasa death. And I think that worked really well for them. I mean, because you do get some people that aren't fans of The Lion King. It just doesn't work for them. Again, because it doesn't hit for them. But for most of us, it does. And I just feel like with this film, I see that they're trying to make people feel for Picard. And not just Picard, but also Data as well. And for me, it works. And that's why I'm putting it in the neutral zone, because I think it's a very much when you try and build a film around having an emotional resonance, it's very much a person-to-person thing. And given the lukewarm reviews it got, I guess it worked for some of us, not for others. I was wondering what you all thought about that as an idea.
You've got to know the character, surely. You've got to actually give a shit about Picard. And if you're not going to be a casual moviegoer, not really going to see much Star Trek and actually care about Renee and Robert.
The thing then is was it a smart idea to try and put so much into that side of it when there was going to be a lot of people that were coming to see the film that never actually watched the show?
Yeah, I think that's the problem. Is that it feels like an episode in a lot of ways, but one of the main ways is that it assumes that you know these characters really, really well. Whereas if you look at, we'll ignore Star Trek the motion picture for now, but if you'd come into Star Trek with Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, those characters are painted in such broad strokes in that film that you can immediately identify with them and get it and appreciate it. And, the death of Spock can hit hard even if you don't really know who they are. And I don't think this film does enough of laying the groundwork to make you feel that. If you look at the first, after the Enterprise B prologue, whatever you want to call it, the first scene is that Worf promotion scene. And it's really in-jokey and assumes that you know who all these people are. And I just imagine that must fall absolutely flat to someone who's not familiar with these characters at all. It's a very strange sequence.
Yeah, it's a little awkward at times too, but
yeah. I mean, it was.
I guess I would put that in my neutral zone as well, because it's if you don't like the whole thing with Geordi and Data talking, and then Data pushing, Crusher into the water, like that's not going to really make much sense or be all that funny if you're not that familiar with the characters.
No,
although as Geordi points out, that is not funny.
It's as funny as what Riker does.
I know, right? Like I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, I feel like he should have honestly been a little bit more specific with Data there, because Data's really just as confused as he was beforehand.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why exactly is it not funny?
It's in my. I've got this in my cons.
I guess it's
because I feel that Data would get the joke. Like he would get the plank withdrawing joke. This is not the first time they've gone through this ceremony. This is a tradition that they clearly do, because it's like no one's ever done it before. They say so. He would know the tradition, and I think by this point he would understand the joke. And I think it's just a way of shoehorning in the emotion chip. So that's why I don't like it.
I guess they wanted to make him, they made him a little bit more naive for the movie to work than he probably would really be based on how his character's developed.
Yeah, and see, I'm being really harsh here because I'm criticising them for not drawing the characters well enough for an uninitiated audience, but then when they do something that's designed to do that, I'm criticising that as well, so... You know what? Brannon Braga and Ronald D. Moore, if you're listening, I apologise.
I think they admit on the commentary that it's shit.
Yeah, they do. Because all their effort was
to write a movie whilst they were finishing off Next Gen and starting DS9. So
exactly.
I keep hearing that they made changes too. Like I remember, I don't know if it's just a rumor, but I keep every once in a while I hear this whole rumor about how originally Kirk was not going to die, and then the script was leaked and they changed it to him dying.
I don't know about that. I know that originally he was just shot in the back at the end, because that's in the novelization of it. Because novelizations generally work from an earlier version of the shooting script, and it was changed late in the day. So that I know that it was a much lamer death. And like this opening sequence on the ship, I think was added late in the day, and it was meant to originally start with the array getting attacked. Where we see the aftermath of it.
And I think Captain Kirk was also out
space parachuting.
Parachute. Yeah, what is it? Space parachuting?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, jumping down. Yeah, he was out parachuting or doing something.
I guess that makes the bit from the Abrams film make a bit more sense now.
Because you could get Captain Kirk in skydiving gear action figures. So they definitely must have filmed that, because you could get a Shatner action figure, and
Yeah, the deleted scene is on the special features.
Is it?
The special edition, yeah.
Oh, you see,
it's not that great. It's obvious they're trying a little too hard to make Captain Kirk look really macho and cool.
Yeah, we did. I didn't get that on my free tape. I probably would have had to have bought the Telegraph for 6 months or something to get the deleted scenes back in the day. But that brings us on to the cons then.
Also, I do have.
Oh, you got more neutral zone. Sorry.
Neutral zone.
I thought we'd transitioned to the cons.
Okay, well, I'll let you go next, Lainey, because you got more than me.
Okay. So, the Enterprise B looks pregnant, but I also think it's kind of. I sort of see the original Enterprise as being 60s, 70s kind of fashion. And then you've got the 80s, 90s Enterprise D. So I think it kind of fits in. I don't hate it. I know some people have feelings, but I don't like it. I think it works if you kind of think about the fashion of like where it kind of sits in between the two. Anyway, just my thoughts.
As soon as you said that, in my head popped the phrase, "The Enterprise is preggers."
Yeah, well, maybe the Enterprise
not in the
D
movie.
give birth to the Enterprise C.
That should have happened in an episode. The Enterprise should have got pregnant. If they've not done that, that should be Strange New Worlds season 1.
It's the NCC Baby Prize.
Baby prize. I see. Yeah, I was a bit slow there.
As your baby prize, do.
Baby prize.
All right, I'm gonna have to go now. You're at an elementary school when that song was big, so I'm gonna have to go.
I have a question. The Elorians are refugees on these transport ships because their planet's been destroyed by the Borg. So the Federation were aware of the Borg 70, 80 years before.
No, they didn't tell him. They just said, yeah, something's attacked us. We're not going to tell you where it is.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if that's the canon answer, but it doesn't
we're
make
going to
sense.
gloss over the fact that...
I just kind of assumed that it was something they found out about after the fact, but hard to say.
Well, we got attacked. We have no idea what happened, and then they put pieces together to figure out it was a Borg, maybe. But I was like, okay. The Enterprise B captain, the guys on the main pod gave him they were not kind, I don't feel. So I was watching him closely when I watched this afternoon, and I felt he had ideas. I think he was feeling a lot of pressure because he had Jim Kirk there, he was feeling a bit like, oh Christ, I best not mess that up. But he did have ideas, which, he couldn't implement because everything's coming on Tuesday. He did ask Kirk for advice. He got stumped and he was like, have you got any ideas? And then he was going to go and do the thing that ultimately killed Kirk. But Kirk said, no, you should stay here on the bridge. It's your ship. And Kirk went. So I don't feel he was as useless as some people have described him as being. He was trying. He was put in a really awkward situation. I did notice that the Enterprise B's crew were very old. And I thought, I wonder whether that was just to make, like, Kirk and co look not as old. I've got Dig Kirk Die Alone. We'll come back to that later. Spiner's acting, I've touched on that. The uniforms, there was just no consistency to the different uniforms. I think that's what bugged me. I could understand if they were phasing out one uniform into another uniform, but 1 minute the characters wearing the old uniform and then they're wearing the new uniform, and there doesn't seem to be any logic to it. That's what annoys me. If the commanders had all been in the new uniform or something, and they, that bugged me. And Data's talking to Picard about how he needs to be relieved of duty, and Picard's just sort of like, I expect you to manage your emotions like any other member of my crew. It's this guy's kind of going through quite a significant piece of mental health here, probably akin to PTSD, or just really quite not in a good place, not in a safe place. This is a very dangerous machine that is all of a sudden filled with emotions. And I feel that it's probably, I don't know whether it's deliberately in the script, but it's Picard projecting that he just needs to pull himself together and get on with it. And maybe Data needed the tough love that Picard gave him to sort of move forward. But I also kind of thought maybe this quite deadly machine should have a bit of time off. But
well, yeah, and of course. Sorry. I was just saying, of course, in the next movie, he's just able to turn his emotion chip on and off easily.
Yeah.
So it's
that out.
Well, what about all the work that he just did in this movie?
This time round, I noticed, when I was watching McDowell, I could see that relationship, relation with Alexander Siddig. If you sort of see Alexander Siddig now and how he acts, I sort of you can see how they're related. Whereas when I first learnt about that, and I'm like, oh, shut up. Bashir and Soren are like, what? But you can, as Siddig's aged, you can kind of see that they're quite similar. Yeah, so Deanna's on the helm. Was that really the best choice? So you got Riker there, and I know he's like in charge of the ship. He's commanding the ship, but isn't he supposed to be some kind of hot shot pilot?
Yeah, he is.
Reference chain of command, and you've got, the saucer section like spinning out of control, like crash landing. Would it not be better to have the most experienced pilot in charge of that?
It could have gone manual as well. I mean, we're two films away from that, but
I know. I do have in my notes. Perhaps it's because there was no joystick. He didn't have a joystick, so he's like, "No, I can't be asked."
Yeah.
Who knows? Riker starts to look like caveman Riker. I can't remember the episode. Were they all
Genesis?
Evolved Genesis. It looks like Genesis Riker. As he starts to get more and more sort of beat up. The photo album, Picard's precious photo album, was last seen in his quarters, not the ready room yet. They're looking for it in the ready room, probably so that they can just move on the ship for the take-up thing. But that annoyed me. I don't think Kirk has a terrible death, but I think the burial is terrible. He isn't honoured in the way that he should be. But maybe we'll come on to that when people hate it in a minute. That's me done with my neutral zones.
Joe, did you have some neutral zones?
I just sort of wanted to bring up one more thing. But I'm trying to remember what it is now. Give me a second.
I got one.
Oh yeah, you go next then. I'm kind of putting the Dura sisters in the neutral zone because no, I love the Dura sisters, but they're in the neutral zone because there's not enough of them.
Yeah,
I think they should have been the main villains of the movie.
Also,
as much as I love Malcolm McDowell, I just think they're more interesting. Although maybe it would have gotten more too over the top if they did it.
Like, not to bring the tone down, but it wasn't Beator pregnant last time we heard from her, so that makes it a bit more harsh that they just blow her up.
Oh, there's a dead baby Klingon somewhere, or a orphaned baby Klingon.
Well, it may not have been born yet. So it was really late in TNG when you found out she was pregnant. It was
that one with the Alexander comes back from
the future. So it's only about 4 episodes ago. So
wow.
So this actually takes place after their television appearance.
Yeah.
Because I thought, was this the actual?
Well, it has to do to get blown up.
That wouldn't make sense because if this was their first television appearance when they got blown up, I mean, the fact that they were on one episode of Deep Space Nine would make it somewhat awkward unless they somehow came back from the dead.
Yeah, because they are on Deep Space Nine. That's what I was trying to think.
Yeah, it was
about the timeline.
The last appearance before this was in a really late episode of TNG. And they were in DS9 before that, and then obviously originally in TNG before that. But yeah, I just thought, a bit harsh that, she's pregnant, and Anywho.
Maybe they have really quick pregnancies and she's had the baby.
They could do, because doesn't
Alexander, that comes around quick, doesn't it?
Doesn't the baby... Now that I think about it, there's an episode of DS9, is it The Sword of Kahless? And I think it might be Beator's baby in that. Maybe. I think someone's stealing a car near us. Oh, it stopped. That's okay. Right. Any more neutral zones?
So the only thing I wanted to bring up was the big... It's more of a funny story, really. During one time I was watching... It was on the television... And we were watching. I was kind of half watching it and half listening to music on my phone. And it got to the bit where we had the big crash scene, where it crashes onto the planet. And for some reason, the song that starts playing is a Stevie Wonder song called "Another Star" from Songs in the Key of Life. And so there I was watching the crew and cast being knocked around and exploded and being, crashing into the planet, while this extended music, like instrumental sections playing, and it fit ridiculously well. Partly because there was something about this whole section that, despite being really well made, it never really grabbed me. I don't know what it is about the section where they crash, but I just always felt like it always hit me a bit. It didn't really hit me. So it sort of made the music made it funnier. It was like a na 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 na. And so while they were, and I eventually turned it into a YouTube video, which no one really bloody watched. But
no, you should do. This
anytime I listen to a song or see that thing, I just feel like the two things are inseparable now.
You could have stumbled across the new, what do you call it, Dark Side of the Moon and Wizard of Oz. It could be...
Songs in the Key of Life and
Star Trek Generations.
I'm not
exactly.
Sure, somehow.
Well, I think you need to try it and report back.
Stevie Wonder you're talking?
Yep, Stevie Wonder.
Okay. I had my headphones off for a second, so I didn't catch all of that. That's a great album.
It is a very, very great double album.
Right.
I mean, so you're saying watch it with Star Trek Generations?
I don't know yet. I'm just saying that it was just a funny story, I guess. And again, it was in the neutral zones because for saying that it's the Enterprise D crashing and making its final thing, it kind of concerned me that I didn't really feel anything from it.
Mm.
And apart from Spock, apart from Data finding Spot alive, like that's
It gets me.
No, it's weird.
I suppose it's more spectacle than emotion when they crash the ship.
Mm.
Yeah, because it didn't like when the Enterprise got destroyed in Star Trek 3. It didn't get me either. I guess I just don't really care about the ships that much.
See, I was going to say I think it's a lot more effective in Star Trek 3.
I think it's more effective, which is weird because like this one, we've followed this ship for 7 years, and but yeah, it doesn't really. You just like, okay, whatever.
Do you think maybe it's because of Data yelling the word shit?
Maybe.
Yeah.
See, that was the best bit of that bit.
I know, it's great, but maybe it cut down on the emotion a bit.
It broke the tension a bit too much, yeah.
But I remember that was one of my favorite parts as a kid, too, because, of course, back then, I was only like 12, so I hearing, the a curse word in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. He didn't say that on TV. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got to go to the cinema to see that.
And then they finally worked in the F word, I think, in Star Trek Discovery. I guess that's the first appearance for that one.
Not going to get the shock value anymore now.
Although this is not the first time the S word appeared in Star Trek. Didn't they say it in like Star Trek 4? Or am I thinking of Double Dumbass on You?
They said Double Dumbass. They probably said shit as well, yeah.
God damn.
Shall we do cons then? Go on then. I've got a couple. And they talked about this on the main podcast, but the fact that they've just repurposed dialogue, so all of a sudden Chekhov's a doctor, weird. What's going on with the lighting? Like, is this because the TNG sets don't stand up to motion picture cameras, so they've just had to light it practically in darkness so that you don't see the lack of detail? The weird, like you talked about Worf having a chair, but the bridge has been slightly redesigned, but not much, to the point that it's a little bit pointless. Like, basically they have just put in extra chairs around the outside. Bit odd. Killing off Picard's family, like we've talked about how it's got a good emotional resonance, but you go back and watch the episode Family and it's like, Renee's out there gazing at the stars. I don't know why I'm doing a French accent because they didn't. But they're like, he's out there gazing at the stars and, let him dream and all this. And he's there just looking up and he's dreaming of his future. No, gonna burn to death in 4 years, son, so don't get too carried away with that idea.
It does taint that episode.
A little bit. Weird future picture frames. Like, why have they all got this weird sort of hologram border? It's like when you get a sticker album and you get a foilie and you're like, oh, stick that one in. The Nexus scenes are just too long. Like, the Christmas scene's way too long. And then the scene with Kirk where it all builds to a big dramatic crescendo, the music, and then Kirk just goes, Dill. What? Dillweed? And you're like, what? And then they're just faffing about with them eggs. It's just way too long. Like, I'm sure so many people must have wrote fan fiction about Kirk meeting Picard and blah, blah, blah. I don't think anyone would have guessed they were going to cook some eggs with dill.
Eggs.
And also, not as popular now. It was really in when Lloyd Grossman were hosting MasterChef, everything, I'll put dill in this. And it was really, really in, but it's not, it's not the most popular ingredient.
I will say, though, if you want to put something on, you want to put something on your potato wedges or roasts, dill's pretty good, actually. It's quite nice.
Eggs, bit of salt, bit of pepper, boom, sorted. Don't need dill. Anyway, but the point is, I should not be watching two of my childhood heroes cooking eggs. You know what I mean? They've only got limited screen time together. The horse scene's fine. The stuff after it's fine. Like, I like that they refilmed it so Kirk doesn't just get shot in the back. The death's okay, he gets to be heroic and do his big jump and everything. And it's weird that he says, oh my. Like that.
That's so weird.
Really weird.
So weird. I've never picked up on that before. But after listened to the pod, and I was like, he doesn't say that.
He does.
What did he say?
He says, oh my.
That's his last word.
Oh! Maybe it was Sulu.
It was it's a dig. It's a dig at George Takei.
I don't think it is. I think it's just a weird one. And also just random bit of trivia now, but talking about how they buried him. If you look when the scene pans back, first of all, he's burying him at the top of the mountain. So did Picard lug that body up that whole mountain? Or could it have been that he actually died up there in the original ending that they filmed? Who knows? But then if you look, when the camera pans back, there's also a pile of rocks next to the tree, which is where Picard buried Soren in the original version, because Soren was played a bit more sympathetically and he didn't get blown up. So Picard also buried him as well at the same time he buried Kirk, so there's rocks next to the tree.
Well, something to look out for next time.
There you go.
I was going to say, it wasn't much of a cairn either, was it? The vultures will be there in minutes.
Well, no, they won't, because the Romulan / Borg will come and beam him up within a couple of minutes. I've read the beginning of that book. So, yeah.
I used to have, actually, I'm trying to look to see, I might have a copy of one of those Shatner co-written books.
Yeah, I read the first
one. I don't remember if I still have it or not.
I read The Ashes of Eden, which is set just before Star Trek 6, and then that leads into The Return, but I never read The Return. I started reading it, got bored. I'm not very good at reading. Well, I am, but anyway. So they're my cons. Who else wants to tear this film apart?
Okay, so the biggest problem with this film is the writing. Firstly, the dialogue can be good, but there's spotty bits. But that's not the worst bit of it. No, it's just the idea that they had an idea of what they wanted to do, but when it all comes together, it just doesn't make sense. And nothing about the Nexus makes sense apart from being inside the Nexus, right? That stuff I'm all right with. I'm fine with, you're in the Nexus and you get whatever you want and you're happy, fine, good. That bit's fine. However, everything else about how it works is bloody stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
For a start,
It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. And Soren's motivations don't make much sense. I mean, I could go into more detail, but I don't actually think I need to, because this has been such a plowed field in the world of Trek. How things like why did the missile work? If Soren's made his way back to the Nexus, well, how can you stop him? Time doesn't work that way. As soon as he's won.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a version of him that's won, so which is a bit weird.
I don't think they're bothered about whether he wins or not. It's whether they can stop the planet getting destroyed. Like, if there's a version of him in the Nexus, good for him. But it's more, we have to save Viridian 3.
Yeah, I guess so. And obviously the rest of the...
I mean, there's...
Stop the Enterprise being killed. But there's just... all of that stuff, and then you get to the fact again, Duet Sisters, great, but it's like essentially what they've done is they had to think of something, so they go back into their book of what should we do to try and make the ship crash? Oh, what about this? What about we just do the thing that happened to Geordi by the Romulans, but have it happen to it's so cheap. And it could be easily solved by Worf just... why wouldn't Worf scramble the frequencies? It just...
It's very lame that they get taken down with one photon
torpedo. If you don't turn your brain on, you won't notice these things.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it just does not hold up. And again, it just feels like similar to what I said about The Lion King. It's almost like they were under the gun and thought to themselves, okay, this is what we've got. It probably doesn't make sense. Let's put all of our effort into making sure you at least feel for Picard, and hopefully that emotion will carry us along. And for some people it did. In some ways for me it did. But yeah, it just does not hold up. And so despite the fact that I like, again, it's weird. Like, I don't have any malice towards this film, but I don't feel like it earned it. That's the thing. It's almost like it's cheated its way into making me like the film. It didn't earn, the way that, say, First Contact will, or Star Trek 6. I will say I'm not the biggest watcher of the original series, but darn, Star Trek 4 and 6 made me care, and 2. All of these things, all these films, they earned my like. But this is just like, hey, a character you like, something bad's happened to him, he's sad. And I'm like, oh, I'm sad now because Patrick Stewart is such a good actor. But yeah, the film didn't earn it. I don't know. Again, and I'm not going to bring up any more cons because I think that just sums up how I feel about it in general.
I've just thought as well, it's weirdly structured because you've got that thing of them redoing the ending effectively. So you're watching the film, you get to the climax of the film, and your brain's telling you, because you know how stories work, this is the end of the film. And then it goes, oh no, it's not. Now we've got 20 minutes in the Nexus, and then the end of the film again. And it just feels weird because it's a really odd way to tell a story. Anyway. Sorry, Lainey? Sorry, Tony, go on.
Oh, well, I was going to say, it does kind of feel like, sometimes it feels like they didn't spend the right amount of time with certain things in the movie. Like, they spent too much time in Christmas Day at the Nexus, but not enough time with the Duras sisters, and not enough time with Kirk and Picard outside of the Nexus, and well, as far as my cons go, as much as I do like this movie, the plot doesn't hold up much under scrutiny. I think most of y'all have already made points about that. I wrote down, I'm just going to share this one note, one of these few notes I did write down just because I think it's funny. This is about the beginning of the movie. I wrote, very splody. A little too many explosions for my personal taste. That's more of a personal preference, though. Oh no, I'm suddenly blanking out on my last one. As much as I do enjoy this movie, upon this rewatch, the big quote finale with Soren, Picard, and Kirk seems kind of underwhelming compared to what's going on with the Enterprise crash and like I feel like there's more of an emotional payoff with that with Spot and his cat than there is with
definitely
Kirk's death. I mean, it's still touching, but it just doesn't. It's just not as much as it could have been. It could have been like on par with like Spock's death in Star Trek 2, but it just wasn't.
And it should have been. Yeah, Kirk deserved that. But I don't know, maybe is some of that maybe because Star Trek 6 did such a good job of saying goodbye to these characters that this doesn't feel like the ending of it. It's like I've already said goodbye to Kirk in Star Trek 6 and now it's just kind of a little extra bit, and so it doesn't hit that emotional beat that maybe it should. It's almost like a coda for the original series movies or something like. Yeah. I wonder. All right. Lainey? I'm a musician, so, music terms.
Are we ready?
We are.
I hate the opening sequence, it's too long. Nice spinny bottle forever and ever and ever. And from that jokey con, I go into something, recognizing my own privilege. I felt quite uncomfortable watching a shackled black man being brought out the hull of a slavery ship.
Yeah, not thought of it that way.
I thought about that too when I watched this. Plus, Geordie's yell is arguably a little stereotypical too. When he goes like or something like that. I can't do it.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, let's put this scene in to introduce you to all the crew and slightly mislead you as to what our agenda is.
Yeah, I get it. And then actually, I was thinking of that when you were saying, like, if you don't know Star Trek and you're watching this film, and the first time you're introduced to these people is, we're going to bring this black man out the hull of this ship shackled. It's a bit like, what's going on?
Yeah, no,
what is this?
And if you didn't have Geordie there, he would have been the only one too.
Yeah. So anyway, like I say, I know that I'm speaking from privilege, and I'm British. Although we probably had quite a lot to do with it.
I'm going to say we were probably the ones doing the keel-hauling and stuff.
We were on the ships, yeah. Yeah, and it's like, this ship is like captained by this white British man.
Yeah. I'd never thought of that.
Sort of like, maybe this is 2020 eyes, 2020, 2021 eyes looking back at a 1994 film going, yeah, that's problematic. Talks about how Data should have understood the joke. When Geordie agrees to insert Data's chip, he does it in Data's quarters, but says, the first sign of trouble, and I'm going to pull it out there. It's like, why are you doing this in his quarters? Why are you not doing this with, like, proper security around? Like, again, we know Data is dangerous. So why on earth are you just sort of casually popping in the chip like it's a little flash drive?
Yeah, it's kind of like, if you have an operation, if you're sedated, they strap you down because when you wake up and you're disoriented, you go, whoa! And it's like, this is literally the first time he's ever going to feel emotion. He's probably going to go crazy.
Mm-hmm. I hate Mr. Tricorder when Data's...
Oh, I like Mr. Tricorder.
I don't. And just the general hysteria stuff.
I thought that was hilarious when I was a kid.
So Guinan, when she's telling Picard all about the Nexus, she's like, you won't want to come back. No one ever wants to come back. It took me ages to accept that I could never get back. And then he just does. When Soren has Geordie captured and he's going on about how, why don't you make yourself look more normal? It's like, well, what does normal look like in your universe? Like, have you not seen that there's like blue and green and purple people with 7 heads walking around? Like,
can there even really be such a thing as normal on the Star Trek universe?
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as normal here, right now?
Not really,
it's
but
just ridiculous. Okay. So they mentioned that this is pulling the plot apart again, but they mentioned that he can't use a ship to go into the Nexus. He's got to be on a planet going, yeah, come get me. Because any ship that gets close to it gets destroyed. But these refugee ships were in it.
And they were destroyed.
They were destroyed, but they were in it enough to get in the Nexus.
Yeah.
So why doesn't he just do that again? Because. So Bev has to evacuate the sick bay. So the sick bay's not in the saucer, which kind of felt a bit stupid. Like, why would you want it near the engine and the massive explodey thing?
Mm-hmm.
When they crash, they make a big deal of like focusing in on all these like fixtures and fittings that have been like ripped apart out of the ship because of the crash. But no one's like broken their neck or anything. Strange. The weird English Christmas. What's that all about? This is not what British people do, or English people. This is not what we do at Christmas time. This is not. I've never had a Christmas anything like this.
Yeah, if it had been realistic, it'd have been rowing with mother-in-law, going, "Look, will you take your mother home?" And
eating too much before Christmas dinner, and then not being able to eat your Christmas dinner, watching crap on telly.
Have they done an Only Fools and Horses this year, or is it just Doctor Who?
Looking at the TV guide, circling what you're going to watch, because you don't want to talk to each other.
Exactly.
Okay, but then again, like, it's a fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah, but why is he having that fantasy? Who's made a decision that Picard... That would want. That is what he would want.
And Picard, who's French, just because they always forget because Patrick Stewart's English, they always forget Picard is French.
Yes.
Even though it's a French name.
Yeah.
I don't know what French tradition is for Christmas.
But it involves lots of wine.
It's not much different to ours, apparently. But
did any of y'all have Christmas crackers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were growing up.
Oh, yeah.
Americans might know I'm not talking about edible crackers.
No. That's the thing. If this was an English Christmas, everyone should be sitting around feeling like they've eaten too much. Someone's a bit pissed. Someone's asleep in a chair.
Yeah.
And everyone's wearing paper
They're
hats.
all got party hats on. Yeah. Kids are playing with toys. Though, to be fair, the kids are playing with the toys, which is an Alien versus Predator toy. Bizarrely. Yeah, that spaceship the kid's playing with is an Alien versus Predator spaceship.
No, I like that someone from the prop department's gone, I know what I'm going to do.
Reminds me of Robin Williams getting a Neon Genesis Evangelion figure into 1 hour photo because he was a fan.
Nice. I do like things like that. This is the sort of thing, if I watch this film again, I might not ever bother. But I'll look out for things like that. I think the wife should have been Nella Darren. Especially with the big deal they make of stellar cartography. I can't say stellar cartography.
It's really a lost
cartography. Yeah.
It's really a lost opportunity. They don't have anyone in there.
No, it's just some random person.
Yeah, I think Jeremy or Jordan said something about like, well, why wasn't it Beverly Crusher? Or something like that.
Should have made lots of sense.
Or Vosh.
Just
I think Nella's always been my fave.
Yeah, Nella Darren, that was a really good episode.
Well, I would think so too. She's the one that seems like, but that's one of my favorite episodes, though.
Yeah, it's a great episode.
Like not everyone. I don't think everyone likes the episode, but I really like it a lot. I think it's very.
Okay, I like her.
Makes me sniffy.
Yeah. And I've written hashtag not my Renee. I don't understand why Renee hasn't aged. I guess it's fantasy. It's not real, but. Well, we would have seen Renee like 4 years prior.
Yeah.
Why didn't they just use the same actor who would have been 4 years older to be Renee? maybe like a young adult having a conversation. Anyway, I'm rewriting the script, so that's unnecessary. Why would Nexus Guinan know Picard was there and know about what was happening in true time? Because the Nexus is bullshit, thank you very much. Time has elapsed for Nexus Guinan, but hasn't elapsed for Kirk, which suggests that not only can you move to and from in your own imaginary life, you can move to and from in other people's imaginary lives as well. Every time I watch this film, I try and make it make sense. And it's impossible. It just doesn't make sense, does it? There's no version of this that makes any sense. It's just complete and utter bullshit. Who leaves eggs unattended to go and chop wood? Kirk sold his house. There's no money. They used the line when your grandfather was in diapers again, which they've used before.
Yeah.
And how did they leave? Well, did they just sort of like click their heels together and go, I want to go back now? And like
rode
how
on
did they
the
leave
horses.
the Nexus? They what, sorry?
They rode out on the horses. Well, they did. It shows it happening.
I still didn't really pick up on that. That's true. They never really explain how they do it.
They just pop back.
They just
and as I said on the main pod, they could have popped back. Anyway, they could have done gone back to Baby Soren and killed Baby Soren and stopped all this happening.
No, you don't.
It's at least suggested that helping him is one of the reasons they're able to get out, but they don't explain how.
They do. You get like a special effect when they ride off with the horses. So I always took that as they're choosing to leave at that point, and
maybe they could have left all along. If
they wanted to. I think you just have to
just walk. If they'd walked into that direct, is it like the Truman Show where it is literally limited amount of space?
No, it's not to do with space. It's to do with wanting to leave. So I think whenever you choose to leave, you leave. But they just thought, we'll do it cool on horses.
But it's just your spirit that's in this thing, right?
And then did they appear in the real world like that and just fall off? The horses had disappeared. And Malcolm McDowell's like, what on earth?
No, I know what happened. The horses, they have ruby horseshoes.
There you go.
Put them together and said, they said the horse version of There's No Place Like Home, but it would have just sounded like. They said that there's no place like Viridia 4 or whatever it is, because they don't want to go home. Then.
Did the saucer section crash on the same planet that Picard's on, or was it on the inhabited one?
Yeah, it was the same planet Picard's on, because when it shows the supernova doing the planet, it gets the Enterprise as well.
But the ribbon only takes, you literally have to be in the ribbon, and you can see it only kind of in halfway through the planet. So Soren was doing all this stuff to make sure that he was in exactly the path.
Yes.
So the Enterprise didn't, presumably, get pulled into the Nexus. Otherwise, the whole of the crew would have been in the Nexus.
No, the Enterprise is on like a different part of the planet.
It's arguably a different film, a better film, if the whole crew had been in there, chatting to bulbuls.
Yeah, they could have all cooked Riker could have shown Kirk how to cook the eggs.
Cook eggs, yes. There you go. There's the film.
Going back to that, which episode is it where he cooks the eggs and he says that he's cooking omelettes, but he's not. He's cooking scrambled eggs. It dragged me mad.
It's the one where Pulaski finds. Isn't it the one where he finds out Pulaski knocked his dad?
Something like that.
Yeah, it's the one where it's when Riker uses the bad eggs, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a good episode.
They're good.
And that's not what omelettes are. Anyway.
And my ultimate question, as I've inferred for a few of our meetings now, did he die on his own? Which he made a big old deal of in 5?
Technically not, because Picard were there.
Do you die if you go into the Nexus? Are you dead? If you can come back out and be a actual tangible human being?
I mean,
that's another one of those things they don't really explain.
That's a big philosophical question, isn't it?
Because he's alone when he's on the Enterprise B. He dies alone if he dies. But he doesn't die. He's in the Nexus, sort of like in between life.
Yeah, I don't think you're dead on the in the Nexus. You're just a different type of existence. So no, he doesn't die alone. But technically that's not a continuity problem. That's just, Kirk always thought he was going to die alone, but he didn't.
Alone. Yeah.
It's like, I could say I've always known I was going to make £1 billion, and then if I don't, I can't go, bad writing.
No. I don't care. It's not continuity. I'm just interested to sort of...
No, I think he didn't.
Write about that. Did he die alone? And actually, maybe the people who write these things should have known he'd said that.
Yeah, I think they should have made it so he died alone.
I mean, he does still die without any of his close friends or people he really knew. I mean, he's just met this Picard guy, so I suppose you could say he's symbolically alone, emotionally alone. But I mean, of course, Picard's as supportive as he can be in this particular situation.
And they weren't like next to each other. Oh no, he did.
He is right next to him.
When he dies, not the thing that actually killed him. Yeah. Oh, back to the burial. Right. So we've got the did he lug him up the hill thing, but also hasn't Kirk been crushed by all this metal?
Yeah, Picard had to have shifted that bridge.
He's lifted it all off, moved it all out of the way, and all before the shuttlecraft came and got him.
So that scene was actually 3 days later. They just didn't tell you.
Yeah, they just left him there.
They were just like, the Enterprise has crashed. We'll get around to it.
Well, actually, I was thinking that the pile of rocks didn't really look like it was big enough to cover an entire human being. So maybe he left Kirk there.
Yeah, it's just a memorial
just put
thing.
Monument together.
Or it was literally just the top half of him.
Oh God!
Or just his wig.
That's a little more gruesome.
Yeah, he's left the rest to be under the metal.
Oh God!
To be asked. So now I'm just going to drag his torso up a hill rather than wait a couple of hours for someone to beam him up somewhere and give him an appropriate burial.
Yeah, and they never explain, does he tell anybody that he met Kirk? Does anyone know? I think he's keeping it secret, right? Is that one of the reasons?
Yeah, or do they, would they have had to take him to sickbay? What happened, Jean-Luc? I went into this magic nexus and me and Captain Kirk saw him. Okay, Jean-Luc, come on. Let me just get the tricorder. Let me get the hypo spray.
So there's an interpretation of this where he doesn't tell anybody about his experience in there at all, and everyone just thinks they've crash landed. He's managed to defeat Soren.
Yeah. I chinned him 1-on-1. He didn't stand a chance.
Do you guys do the next time on Star Trek bit?
Sometimes, if you've got one.
Okay. Oh, well, I just thought of one. I wasn't sure if I should save it for later.
No, go for it. Let's hear the next time, man.
All right. Well, next time, in the next Star Trek film, titled Star Trek Litigations, Jean-Luc Picard, they discover the lower half of Captain Kirk's body, identify it through DNA testing, and Jean-Luc Picard is put on trial as a suspect in his murder.
Excellent. Yeah. Very
They have to get the time police involved too, but it's that gets complicated.
Yeah. Oh dear. I've never thought about these things, but I think we've all learned a lot about this film. So are we ready to rank it? Where does it go in the grand list? It's a bit of a mixed bag, isn't it? This could go anywhere, apart from at the top.
On my personal list, I actually would put it on a high-ish, in my ranking, just, in the upper half at least of my ranking, just because I personally have so much nostalgia and enjoyment of it. But objectively, it's got a lot of problems, so I'm not sure.
Well, the list as it stands, I'll start at the bottom. So we've got the motion picture. Above that, we've got Star Trek 5. Above that, we've got Star Trek 3. Above that is 2, then 6, then 4. I would put this below 3, above 5. That's where I would go.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, On that list so far, I think I'd agree with that too.
Joe? Just checked out.
Maybe he would have put it on the bottom. And
Is Joe asleep?
That's in protest.
Did my comms put him asleep?
Joe, is this a joke about how boring the film is, or are you actually asleep?
Oh gosh, hope he's okay.
Oh, this could be the greatest moment of podcasting history. This is brilliant. Well, I heard a snore, but I thought he was mocking the film. So we'll put this below 3, above 5. Brilliant.
Oh goodness.
I
don't know.
Okay, so that's where we've put Star Trek Generations. Next up on the Star Trek Wars podcast, I was going to say, will it be First Contact or will it be a review of the new season of Lower Decks? I'm not sure which comes first, but so keep an eye on the Star Trek Wars Council Facebook group to find out what's coming next. And hopefully we'll be back to talk about First Contact as well. And I think that about does it from us. Say goodbye, Joe.
Goodbye, Joe.
There once was a ship, but to the skies the name of the ship was the Enterprise. Her nacelles lit, her phasers armed, oh blow, you red shirts blow. Soon may the flagship come, bring us Earl tea and Orion rum. One day when the scanning is done, engage and boldly go.
I think I fell asleep.
I think you did.
No, Joe. You've been
Did I
trying to
ruin
wake
everything?
You were snoring a little bit actually.
Oh no.